The SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Edge Boost. Edge Boost enables you to double your bet with no interest. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com today to get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Emerson, Beery, Justin, Bruni. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing good. Ready to talk some fantasy football, talk some Dynasty running backs. Always excited.
Yes, very excited today to dive into the Dynasty Fantasy Football running back landscape. That is exactly what time of year it is. It is startup season with rookie drafts wrapping up. Dynasty Fantasy Football players are joining more drafts right now, so we're going to dive into those top running backs that you'll be drafting. I'm doing pretty good myself, though. It's a farmer's market season. Stroll down there for me, grab some banh mi, stock up on all the overpriced hot sauces and fruit and everything like that. And they're extra delicious. So I love doing that on my Sunday mornings. About to dive
grilling up some veggies, are you?
Absolutely. Go to the fancy mushroom stand and throw those in the air fryer. So
okay. All right. Fancy mushroom stand. I like it.
We'll dive into it, though, today. We're doing the top 12, so the easy first choice here, I think it's fairly consensus at this point. That is Bijan Robinson at the RB1 spot. Justin, we kept making jokes about it every time we were doing those rookie mock drafts. Like, do you want to tell the people why we're taking Bijan Robinson first, or should I? So I'll let you start off today.
You go ahead. I took Patrick Mahomes last time. We've been going back and forth.
All right. I'll take it today. Bijan Robinson, one of the best running backs prospects to come out in the last 10 years. I would, if I was ranking him, I would put him right behind Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott. He's at 104 forced tackles missed last season. We're the most since the stats have been recorded. He is an absolute phenom. While he didn't have a ton of receiving production in college, that average depth of target, he actually ran routes. And, that's exactly what you're looking for. I think, maybe not a Christian McCaffrey or maybe Saquon Barkley when he was at his best type of receiving production, but he should be a very strong part of his profile as well. He's easily, considering his age, the dynasty running back one at this point, considering the age of some of the older prospects at the position. I think Breece Hall actually would have held up if he would have kept up with that rookie season. I think that Breece Hall would have been the RB1 coming into this year, but that ACL injury puts him back for me. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree. Breece Hall would be at number one if he wasn't returning off an injury. Breece Hall still had 13.3 fantasy points per game as a rookie through 7 games, and that was with him just getting warmed up. With Bijan at the age of 21 coming into the NFL ripe for consecutive 300-plus seasons, on the books for these next 2 to 3 seasons, you're feeling very comfortable where you're getting him at just based off of the age. I don't think that taking Jahmyr Gibbs, like he's going to be about 5 or 6 picks back in our rankings. I also, like leaning into that a little bit. Maybe you don't get that top option. You don't get that draft capital in your startup. You can also target another young running back in this group that we're going to be discussing here. But with Bijan, you don't have a lot of talent around him as far as quarterback with the Atlanta Falcons. I don't see that changing overnight. In the next, again, 2 to 3 seasons, I think he's going to be leaned on heavily in this offense. You do like some of the good skill position players around him, like Drake London, like Kyle Pitts, that can maybe help alleviate some pressure, so he's not constantly going up against, a loaded box. And hopefully you get a step forward from some of the quarterback play there, and maybe Desmond Ridder, or if they make a free agency ad. But it looks like he's going to be the identity of their team for the next couple of seasons, similar to what we may have saw from a younger CMC, from a younger Saquon Barkley, where they just come into a situation where, you don't have strong quarterback play. You maybe have some other pieces, but you're looked at to be the identity of the offense and the franchise. So I think it's a great situation for him. And again, you're really just evaluating the age here and the clean bill of health. I'm okay with, him anywhere 1 through 3. If you do want to go with what I, have perceived in a safer floor in a guy like CMC or Breece Hall, because you have seen it. Like even with Breece Hall, he was able to still get out there for 7 games. And what you saw of him was still a very good return, in my opinion, for a rookie running back. Per game basis.
Absolutely. And just, I really like actually, the run scheme that they got going down there. I really like, I think the offensive line's improving in Atlanta. So I think Bijan Robinson, excellent situation to improve. I think it's, no matter what kind of build you have, I think it's a very easy choice. Whether it's, I can't make a case for CMC or Breece Hall. We only got to see Breece Hall for a short time period. So I know what, like I said, I think he would have been the RB1 if he would have stayed healthy, with that kind of season that he was going to produce. But ACL injury, you're already probably looking at maybe a lost 2023 season, or maybe at least the first half of it, maybe, because he's just not going to get back to health yet. We see that time and again with running back. So just being maybe a year of Breece Hall not losing that production, that's a big part of a running back's, career already. So give me Bijan Robinson, easily over CMC in dynasty formats, only because of the fact that CMC is getting a little long-winded in the 2. So, probably in his final 2 or 3 seasons of elite production, probably maybe in his final season of elite production, if history tells us anything. So before we get into our running back 2, I just want to give one more shout out to our friends over at Edge Boost. Have you signed up for Edge Boost yet? If not, you are missing out. Edge Boost is the world's first bet now, pay later Visa card. Similar to buy now, pay later programs, Edge Boost enables you to double your bet with no interest and pay back the advance over 4 weekly installments. That's right, 0%. Simply deposit funds into your account and Edge Boost will match the deposit so you can use 2 times the funds on any legal sports betting site. Edge currently offers up to $2,500 in advances. Up to $2,500 you can add to your bankroll. My Edge Boost double down play of the day is I really like Patrick Mahomes' MVP odds once again, and the Chiefs returning to the Super Bowl. So, you're getting 3 or 4 times your money once again on Patrick Mahomes. And I think that he can easily return on that value, considering the fact that, what he was able to do with that wide receiver core last season. He's going to have to carry it once again. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/edge to sign up today. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/edge. Must be 21 years or older to use, only valid in legal gambling states. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay. With that, we will dive back into the RB2 here in our rankings, and that is Breece Hall, only because I had him that high. You have Breece Hall. You were talking up Breece Hall. I think you have him at RB4 in your own rankings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I have Breece Hall at 3. I have CMC at 2. So I go Bijan, CMC, Breece Hall. And I can, make my argument for CMC. At the age of 26, he's still coming off of about 17.3 fantasy points per game. That's based off of 17 games played. For the majority of his career, he's been healthy. We just saw Austin Ekeler at the age of 28 lead the league in fantasy points per game, total, RB1, right? Total points for the position. I just don't see, it's not hard for me to see a reality that Christian McCaffrey is still a top 5 running back for the next 3 seasons. We constantly say that's the window that we're playing in. And with running backs, that window is much smaller. These guys go up really high, but they come crashing down very quickly. Look at what, Jonathan Taylor, right? From his, year 2 to year 3, there was that huge drop off because of injury. And it's one of the most likely positions to, sustain an injury. So as long as Christian McCaffrey is healthy, that's really the only thing you're betting against is that, he's going to be another year older. He's going to get dinged up and he's going to miss time. I think some people were – go ahead.
No, you know what? I know we are less than a year removed away from calling CMC a huge injury risk, after 2 injury-plagued seasons. Getting older, it's just we've seen this time and time again. It just comes out so quickly from a running back. You just can lose it just like that, unfortunately. So in dynasty leagues, I'm a little bit of an ageist. I definitely am an ageist. So I can't go CMC. He's more, where did he fall for me in my specific rankings here? Let me pull that up. He's my RB5, and I still struggled with that even. I'm just like, man, running back going into his 6th season with as my RB5.
It's difficult for me to see him not being used like the ultimate weapon we expect him to be by the San Francisco 49ers. That's why they traded for him. So I still believe that he gives you an incredibly safe floor for like I said, these next 2 to 3 seasons. And that's the type of window that we're playing in. Now, if you want to get off of him in there, I mean, we're obviously both still evaluating him as a top 5 option, right? Like, obviously that's still very, very good. We have Ekeler in our top 12 here, and he's 28 years old, and a 2 to 3 year window puts him into his 30s. So I'm with you with the age stuff here. I mean, we're going to mix in some of these younger guys as well. But to me, the average age here in this group is still probably about 24 to 25. If he's just a bump off of the average, I still feel very comfortable taking him at 2, especially because I know what I'm getting. Breece Hall, what you're paying for here is expected value. You've only seen him through 7 games. Bijan Robinson, you haven't seen him play any NFL games yet. We're both incredibly high on him. We're comping him to assets like Saquon Barkley, like Ezekiel Elliott. That's the type of, expected value that we're putting on his, 101 value in Dynasty RB1 talk here in this conversation. That's expected value. I've already seen all of this from CMC. So if I get the expected value out of him these next 2 to 3 seasons, bar it, it's not the long-term return that you're going to get from Bijan and Breece if they hit their expected values, but I feel safer and more confident that I'll at least hit a safer floor.
It's just different strategy. I've seen a lot of others, you ride these guys like CMC until they don't go anymore. Me, I like to leapfrog. I like to, ride the Christian McCaffrey for a few seasons, then try to use him to find the next one. That's usually my goal in Dynasty leagues. Shift him over to a wide receiver. So
right. That's exactly what we hope those 2 guys will be in Bijan and Breece, for another 5 hopeful seasons.
And like I said, it doesn't always pay off. Austin Ekeler 2 seasons ago, coming off of his first big year, I would have been like, sell, running back, getting into those late 20s. And, just his lack of rushing production in general. So it doesn't always work out, but, that's just how I usually play. And sometimes you end up just getting, like I said, I love drafting rookie running backs just because, highly drafted, highly coveted rookie running backs. And I take them usually above even consensus just because the running back veterans are so hit and miss in general anyway. So, the running back position is just a bust position. It can happen.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest with you guys, I don't like paying the prices for these guys in Dynasty startups. These are very expensive prices that you're paying for guys like Bijan, CMC, Hall. If you miss out on like the really young guys, like Bijan or Breece or Gibbs, you're still looking at a lot of middle, like 24 to 26-year-old players. I like getting guys with the way back end of my drafts. My most recent startup, I got, what was it? The Commandos running backs and like Dame Harris and Samaje Perine, and then a bunch of rookies. Like, Chase Brown, Abanaconda, I think Deuce Vaughn's in there. I know you always love me hearing talking up Deuce Vaughn. Just getting a bunch of those like 2nd and 3rd round running backs, stacked in with some, back end guys that I know will start and take snaps.
I mean, I made a living in Dynasty. I haven't done a Dynasty, actually, a real Dynasty startup in almost a year and a half because I did so many COVID leagues and I just haven't been leaving them or anything. That I'm already in 30 leagues. I can't do it anymore. So it's been a long time since I've done a real Dynasty startup, but I made a living off of going 20 rounds without taking a running back. And then, just figuring out running back later, making a trade later or whatever.
Yeah, or you get in those leagues where you have to pick like the kickers for picks. I'm just like, all right, well, here's where I'll take a running back. Here's where I'll take a rookie running back. I love that approach.
Yeah, I used to do those drafts. That was predominantly what the drafts I did. So a lot of fun. We kind of merged them a little bit, but what kind of season do you think Breece Hall is going to have this year? Do you think it's going to be a little bit slow start, or do you think he's going to get off to a hot right back to where he was left off?
You already heard him say, he's like, oh, I'm already feeling a little bit better once they signed Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, Zach. That's
what else?
But no, I think that we should be feeling very good about Breece Hall. It sounds like the rehab is going well. It sounds like he's going to be ready for week 1, no issue. He missed enough of last season, I think, to be ready for this year. So I wouldn't be too worried about him. I'm taking him at a top 3 stock, in this ranking. Like I said, I go Bijan, CMC, Hall. I don't hate going one over the other if you want to, really pull in age, versus what, CMC can offer you now. But again, that's not a decision I like to make. I like nobbling up receivers at that ADP.
Yeah, Breece Hall might be a little bit pricey considering, just where he's going next to wide receivers in the Dynasty startup, but could be a nice trade value or something like that if there is a team
Absolutely.
who maybe is a little bit more trepidation. Although to one of the points you made, I mean, we hear this every year though with these running backs. They're ready to go. They're looking good at camp. They continually start off slow. It's continually going into week one, a little shaky if they're going to play or not, maybe miss a week or two. I'm just totally, as a rule now in general, you're usually going to I always find you get burned on these running backs coming off of ACL injuries, at least the first half of the season. So J.K. Dobbins, he looks great in the second half of last year. And I think, that maybe could be the case for Breece Hall too. Actually, I kind of misspoke a little bit. So we talked about CMC, who's actually number 4 in our running back rankings, consensus rankings. Up at 3 though is Jonathan Taylor. He's my 3rd running back as well. And I think, is he 4 for you? Am I right?
Yeah, he's 4 for me. And that's really just, again, he can be in that top 3 conversation. We saw him come in. What do you have? 17.6 fantasy points per game just 2 seasons ago. 7 less points per game this last season, 10.27. That's a huge decline. Obviously, it's based on the injury. I do see him progressing from that number this season, but my only concern is that if Anthony Richardson is hitting his high expected value outcome, he's taking up some rushing touchdowns. He's taking away some of that run game. So I guess you call that a little like a penalty or flag on his value, if you will, which gets him outside of my top 3. I still think it's a very good situation for both of them with a team that still has a very good offensive line. Jonathan Taylor, obviously still very young, but again, this is a situation where you're, believing in what you've already saw. He finished as an RB6 his rookie season, RB1 his sophomore season, and then parked back at RB33 with an injury-plagued 2022. I think he can bounce back, but I still feel a little bit more risk, exposed, when I'm talking about him hitting like top 1, top 2, when you're bringing in a rushing priority quarterback.
Before I dive into the new Nick Sirianni offense that he's hopefully bringing down to the Indianapolis Colts, what Philadelphia did last year, I just want to tell you about our friends over at Shady Rays. Shady Rays is teaming up with SGPN for Shady Mate. Not only do you get an amazing 50% off, you also have a chance to win $500. Shady Rays has you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and much more. If you don't love them, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. Their team always has your back. And for our international listeners, Shady Rays has you covered as well with shipping to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. Go to shadyrays.com and use code SGPN for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. And remember, May is almost over, so make sure to take your receipt to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/shady for your chance to win the $500 Shady May contest. Back to what you said, I do agree with you what you said about Jonathan. And, having a rushing quarterback, I do always think caps that ultimate ceiling for what a running back can do, but that Nick Sirianni offense, it was productive for Miles Sanders last year. And even if Anthony Richardson is sneaking some touchdowns, I think, of course, he can have a massive improvement on what he did last year. Now, with Anthony Richardson likely gobbling up some goal line work, is RB1 without his elite receiving usage too? Is RB1 maybe within his range of outcomes each year? Maybe not. But I think, Jonathan Taylor, one of those Nick Chubb guys, one of the best pure rushers in the NFL, and he's going to stay very productive. So I like, give me the younger running backs, especially, I think Jonathan Taylor has a very strong 3-year window ahead of him here. So I really like that spot. He is my RB3 as well. So that's exactly where I had him, right behind Breece Hall, just because of the lack
He's
of
my 4, but
upside. Yeah, but he was my 3, you're 4, right?
Yep.
And then next up in our rankings is CMC. You are a little bit higher on him than I am. I just, do you have any trepidations about the fact that there's so much talent in this offense? George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, you have Elijah Mitchell gobbling up some work in the early rushing attempts. And then, I was looking at their NFL schedule, and I actually had them as fantasy football losers because the NFL schedule, the NFC West is weaker this year, and their schedule is pretty weak as well. So when you look at it, I could see them getting out to some early leads and then, taking the foot off the gas, letting CMC take the second half off while Elijah Mitchell gets those carries. Is that a concern for you at all?
No, I mean, I think that's reading into a lot of game script really early in the year, man. I don't look at strength of schedule period for fantasy football. It's just not something that I use to evaluate players that I'm going to draft. everything changes. Strength of schedule is going to change the second you start taking snaps week 1. You're going to see injuries. You're going to see players come out of nowhere. They're going to completely change the expected values out of team outcomes and point totals, et cetera. Like, there's way too much change moment by moment in this league for me to be worried about that. Elijah Mitchell, I mean, I'm someone that is incredibly high on Elijah Mitchell. However, I just don't see them, keeping the Cadillac in the garage here. Like, I mean, it's Christian McCaffrey. They traded for him. I don't believe any of their quarterbacks are top tier enough to the point where Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk have a more important role or focal point in this offense than Christian McCaffrey. I certainly trust him to still have at minimum 20 plus touches per game for the next 2 to 3 seasons. As I said, he still, to me, offers an incredibly safe floor. I look to Austin Ekeler as an example of being able to play into your late 20s with efficiency. He's coming off of RB1 and RB2 seasons at age 28 and 27. If we can see it from him, why wouldn't we expect something at least similar from Christian McCaffrey? And again, he's your top 5. So it's really not that far off. I do have him at 2. That's a little bit higher, but that's also because when you're spending this type of draft capital in a startup, you're looking at win now factor versus win later. He is a very good win now player to draft, in my opinion, at least. Jonathan Taylor, I still think exposes some risk in that offense.
Like I said, I just am a little bit concerned. I want to trying to pull up his receiving stats at the end of last year. He just wasn't quite what we were used to. Oh yeah,
he's coming off an 85 reception season.
It's pretty solid. It's pretty solid, actually. I was thinking back to those. When I had him in some championship games.
Sure.
I got that 3 target game at the end of the season, that 2 target game at the end of the season. So that skewed me a little bit. But yeah, it was pretty solid. Like I said, Elijah Mitchell definitely got a little bit of that rushing volume.
Yeah. He's not going to catch 100 passes. I don't like the seasons of him catching 115, 120 receptions. Yeah, they may not be there, but right now in this NFL, I don't know of many other running backs that are going to do that right now, at least. Maybe Ekeler. But that's also because of his age. Like, they may say, hey, we need to keep your attempts down. We're going to work you more into the receiving game, which I could also, again, see for Christian McCaffrey based on his build, based off of what he can do in an offense at receiver and running back. I mean, if I'm not doing enough to convince you, I think you need to go watch some Christian McCaffrey Instagram videos. I think you need to check in on the workouts.
Hey, ageist, and then he's an old 20. He's been in the league a long time, a lot of wear and tear on those tires. That's just me hating on running backs at this stage in their career. They'll never get to sell me on them. I'd always think that they are just an injury away from what if Christian McCaffrey got, God forbid he did get injury this year, then his dynasty value is almost nothing.
I can say that's about anyone. I can say it about
a lot of players on this list. You could a lot. That's why I value the rookie running backs who have some insulated value, though. Yeah. Usually a little bit. Go
get yourself some Tank Bigsby.
Next up at our consensus rankings is Saquon Barkley. I had him at RB5. I had him at RB6. Where did you have him again?
I think I have him at 5.
Okay, yeah, RB5 in our consensus rankings as well. That one I didn't feel good about. Just Saquon Barkley it just has not been the same recently. If you just look at his receiving production, it's steadily decreased. I know injuries and everything played a part of that, but it's just steadily decreased every year. He's never been a highly efficient pure rusher. He's never, not in his whole career. He looks to bounce it out. He gets tackled. Even last season when he did manage to stay healthy, towards the end of the season, you felt like you could see him slowing down a little bit. I just don't know if it's – I like Saquon Barkley a lot. I think he's in for a productive season. I have him as a top 5 running back this year. I just don't know if we're ever going to see that phenom that we wanted to see, that those 100 catch seasons with, that 1,000 rushing yards, 1,000 receiving yards. I'm just not sure that's ever in his cards. Still a big year, though. Should be the focal point of the offense. They didn't do much to help out Daniel Jones. So in his final season, I don't think that they will have any issue running him into the ground. What do you think?
Well, that would need to be this year for him to, again, not be worth this value. Again, we have him very high. He's coming off a career season of rushing yards, 1,312, 57 catches. Like you had said, the receptions have declined since his rookie season. He caught 91 passes. He hasn't caught over 60 since. But again, last year he caught 57 through 16 games played and averaged 14.3 fantasy points per game. Where I'm going to be at here with these other running backs, I think, again, it's about what I've seen versus what I'm betting to happen. So like some of the upcoming names, I'm just going to tip the cap a little here. Gibbs, Etienne, Walker. These are the types of running backs that we're betting in on, right? Like we have to bet that they're going to progress in their points per game, their involvement in their offense. They're going to continue to shine and progress forward. With Saquon Barkley, this is kind of another one of those like intermediary check marks of, do I want to go with win now, or do I want to wait and play the age game? Do I want to go into dynasty mode, or do I want to take a run at this year? Saquon Barkley is probably that next guy up after Christian McCaffrey of, okay, this feels like a win now type of approach to my draft, that this is the type of direction that we're going to go. I'm okay with doing it because, again, I like his 2 to 3 year window. I think with what the Giants are putting together with Brian Dable, I think that we're still going to see some very positive return on Saquon Barkley for the next at least 2 to 3 seasons. They may pull the wheels back a little bit. They may trim down the attempts, but I think at least the narrative that I've always received with Barkley, kind of like how you were feeling like, oh man, maybe CMC wasn't, what I thought he was, is that no matter what, he gets his, whether it's on the ground, whether it's receiving, he's always going to come home with probably 60 plus total yards in a game, no matter what, and hopefully a touchdown, because the Giants have always just found a way to use him as a weapon. I trust them to do that even more so or more efficiently with Brian Dable at the helm. You obviously saw a big progression for Daniel Jones with Dable under his helm, and a huge return for Saquon Barkley, who was, not a top 10 running back since his freshman and sophomore seasons in the league. He was RB5 last year in PPR format. So the fact that, you have some good or better things happening in New York, I think that there is some, positive outlook on him again for the next 2 to 3 seasons, but I can absolutely see someone leapfrogging some of these players either behind him or whatever ahead of him, based on age. He is 26.
Well, that leads into my next one, and I'm rising him up in the rankings with I had him as my RB4, and that's because of age. I think it's too much to hate. Kenneth Walker's a dog. He's our RB6 in these rankings. He's my RB4. Zach Charbonnet was a mistake picked by the Seattle Seahawks. When Zach Charbonnet gets out on that field, I think the Seattle Seahawks will realize that. I just don't think Zach Charbonnet is really better than there's not a single aspect of really rushing that Zach Charbonnet is better at than Kenneth Walker at. And then you argue the receiving production in college. Okay, I'm not even sure he's that much better. But Kenneth Walker had some chops last year in the receiving game. We saw that. He's very young. I think he might even be younger than Charbonnet. I think he is.
22.
I think they're similar age. I think he's younger.
Walker's 22, but I don't know what I think they're both 22. I'll look up Charbonnet in just a second.
But Kenneth Walker, he is just so talented. He was the best rusher in college football that year, even when Breece Hall was in there. So I really love Kenneth Walker still. I think the hate's gone too far. If you have, I love him on those underdog drafts. If we're getting a little sidetracked, but even in dynasty leagues, I think the long-term outlook is great, very safe floor. Maybe there's a lot of talent, a lot of mouths to feed in that offense, but I think Kenneth Walker is going to continue to get fed in that offense. You have him lower. Why is that?
I have Gibbs and Etienne a little bit higher, and that's just because of their offenses. I am penalizing Walker a little bit for the Charbonnet pick. It's just also difficult for me to believe that Charbonnet won't be included whatsoever. His presence is still going to affect Walker's value some, and Walker still only averaged about 10.8 fantasy points per game last season without Charbonnet. Obviously, that was also with kind of a blooming start. You had to wait for the Rashad Penny injury domino to fall. He had 1,050 rushing yards in 15 total games. Not bad. 4.61 yards per carry. Again, not bad. 9 rushing touchdowns. That 9 rushing touchdowns could come down a little bit, but you still could see some of his other numbers progress. I also just look at the Seattle offense with, a lot of thought of where all the touches are going to go, right? They have a lot of depth at receiver now. It feels like they're going to be a very good football team to win games. May not be the best for our fantasy teams. So I'm parking him back at running back 8. At, again, 22 years old, I'm prioritizing Gibbs a little bit more. He's 21. Etienne is 24, but he's only played 1 full season in the league. So, even at 24, you still feel like he has a lot left to give, based off of, really just one year of action. And really just their offenses, the Jags and Lions offenses, I expect to be at a little bit of a, I don't know if you want to say higher octane, higher output, whatever analogy you want to use. I feel like the Seattle Seahawks are going to be maybe competitive more in games, right? Maybe a little bit more lower scoring, maybe a little bit more strategery and just how they're distributing the ball. So it just doesn't feel like Walker is going to have like that, full bell cow type of feel. If they didn't draft anybody, I think he's up 3 spots. I think he's probably up at 5.
I just don't think there's any running back in the NFL who gets, that 30 attempts a game. I think Seattle can.
You're going to see from an old man Derrick Henry this year.
That's why I love him in underdogs too, and I love him in Dynasty. If you can get him for nothing because the team they're going into a rebuild and they're just like, I have to get Derrick Henry off my Dynasty team. Yeah, absolutely. Sign me up. I've never owned Derrick Henry last few years, and I owned actually Derrick Henry in a few Dynasty leagues now just because I'm just like, yeah, give me Derrick Henry. Yeah, second round pick. That's going to be late, hopefully. Sure, absolutely.
Yep.
But Kenneth Walker, like I said, there's just every running back shares the backfield. I think, Kenneth Walker has almost an opportunity to get the same amount of work that he got last year almost and just add in, that Zach Charbonnet is going to get a little bit of work back there, could get 10, 12 touches a game or something like that. I really like Kenneth Walker, and I was pulling up his statistics while you were talking. He was, since week 6, he was the RB11 in fantasy points per game. So you take out those first 5 weeks or so when Rashad Penny was taking that. He had a pretty productive rookie season. So really a big fan of Kenneth Walker. Next man up here is Jahmyr Gibbs. I think really the only I had more concern about Jahmyr Gibbs pre-draft, and then the Detroit Lions. The only reason that I'm less concerned now is just like, man, if the Detroit Lions love him so much, I mean, they have to know stuff. Brad Holmes is a smart GM. Obviously, I don't think that he was very smart in that pick, but I mean, they have to see something. They have to want to use this guy a ton. I mean, he was the 12th pick in the draft, so the size is a little bit concerning to me. He never took on the majority of his college career, never took on a huge rushing volume or anything like that. Always a great pass catcher, 44 receptions for 444 yards at Alabama. His final year started to get a little bit more rushing work too. So that was great to see. The size, you typically see, around that, the great running backs, most of the great fantasy football running backs have to hit, are 205, above 210 pounds, just because opportunity and rushing volume and, just volume in general is the big driver of fantasy production for the running back position. So can Jahmyr Gibbs shoulder enough volume to be a consistent fantasy football threat? You have him pretty high, so you must think so, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, right now he's about 5'9", $199. You're telling me he won't be an inch taller and probably 5 pounds heavier by week 1?
I mean, why would he be an inch taller?
All right, the inch taller might be.
Why would he be an inch taller?
He's a growing boy. I don't know. He's drinking his fucking milk. I don't know.
I'm 5'7". You sound like my grandmother. Like when I was back in college when I was 18, she's like, "You're still gonna get taller." I was just like, "Yeah, okay, yeah."
No,
sure.
Grandma, it's over. Get over it, lady.
Yeah, that was just her holding out hope. So
exactly.
That's exactly what you sound like right now.
Yeah. Anyways, where I was going with that, Christian McCaffrey, 5'11", 205, like he's really not that far off of that type of frame. I think that's exactly the type of role that we're looking at from him, is someone that's going to be using the passing game, who's also going to be using the run option. We're already seeing injuries potentially to David Montgomery this early in the year. He's obviously a little bit of an older running back, already has 3 years experience in the league. We might just see Jahmyr Gibbs have the workload all to himself down the stretch of this season. I mean, I just don't see there being a direct amount of competition. I think there's a clear path to production here. Already at the ripe age of 21, if he's used like we perceive like that high draft capital would result in, I mean, he's got to have 250 touches a season, no?
That's the worry. Does he get those 250 touches? Because it's going to have to come from receiving work. You know what I mean? It's going to have to get catch some passes, I think, to get there, because it's not going to be. I think David Montgomery. We all
love Jameson Williams, but they haven't really made any other strides in the passing game. Like Sam Laporta, is he just immediately going to come in and just be a tight end that's ready to take 80 plus targets? I don't know. Jameson Williams may not have 80 plus targets this season just based off of time played. Who you want to target? Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds, or Jahmyr Gibbs?
I think you're forgetting one guy who's not a bad
Marvin Jones.
No,
Marvin
David
Jones.
Montgomery is not a bad pass catching running back himself.
He's already getting hurt. I understand David Montgomery's there, but he's already getting hurt.
How badly hurt is he? I didn't read it. How is he?
He probably has just like a strained calf or something.
Oh, well,
like
who cares then? Yeah, he's gonna be fine. David Montgomery's good. Like he's a good running back. Like it's just like
you're preaching to the choir here, pal. Yeah, I know. I like David Montgomery in theory, but they didn't spend a ton to get David Montgomery on the roster. It's not like they're going to be committed to him long term. They just spent the 12th overall pick on Jahmyr Gibbs.
I mean, Dan Campbell has shown no fear in taking off his most talented running back for players.
I know, by drafting Jahmyr Gibbs. He was
and signing Jamal Williams and David Montgomery, though.
Yeah, Jamal Williams, that was obviously just a good addition, though. I mean, the guy had
David Montgomery is way better than Jamal Williams.
In theory. Who had more touchdowns last season. Not David Montgomery.
How many times did he rush how many rushing attempts did he get within the 3 or 5 yard line? That was ridiculous. That'll never happen again. But I'm very happy as Jamal. I drafted so much Jamal Williams last year. It was silly. So I was very happy about it.
Jamal Williams, first TD, Thanksgiving. I was there. Appreciate you, brother.
I love my rookie running backs, though. He's my RB8 behind Travis Etienne, actually, just because, this is a good lead in to Travis Etienne, our consensus RB8. I have Travis Etienne ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs just because I trust that frame a little bit more. I trust consistent volume a little bit more. I like the offense quite a bit, just like, obviously it isn't as concerning because Tank Bigsby had a 3rd round draft capital, but I see Travis Etienne once again. Clearly, even the more talented rusher, just not Tank Bigsby, change of pace guy. Really, all I see that is, and hopefully we get. I think he only had like 4 games over 3 targets last year. Like, hopefully we get a few more of those games. I don't know if I have any reason to expect that, unfortunately, just because, man, I add Calvin Ridley, still Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, all these guys. So,
right.
I don't know if there's a reason to expect that, but it wasn't his profile. He's not as an adept route runner, I think, as some people perceived him as, just looking at his raw stats in college, a lot of dump offs, but very talented with the ball in his hands either way. So, obviously could get schemed up in the screen game. So what are your feelings about Travis Etienne this year and going forward for Dynasty?
So my bet on Etienne is that he is going to take a big leap in the passing game. For him to actually perform to this ADP and this RB ranking, I have him at 7. Because I do believe that he will. I believe that the Jaguars are going to try to get this guy at least from last year to this year, at least from, I think, 35 catches to over 50. I think for him to really hit this evaluation or to even bump on it to go ahead of RB7, he's got to catch at least 70 passes because I don't see him getting it done on the ground with the competition that they're building around him. Doug Peterson has stated clearly that he wants to run the ball with multiple running backs. So, i.e., Tank Bigsby, he's included in that plan now. Dearness Johnson, they didn't commit to him long-term, but expect him to get work this season in an offense where, again, Doug Peterson will use multiple backs. We've seen it in his playbook in years prior. They didn't have the depth last season to do that, but you've seen these other guys that have come out of nowhere, like Jamal Agnew. He's randomly getting touches. He's taking the ball out of Etienne's hands. So I think that they would just have a more competent group around him now, and they should be looking to develop him more as a passer. I would not hate it if he came down 50 to 60 carries from last year, but he caught double the receptions. That's honestly what I'm betting on happening here because these other options around him, like you had highlighted, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Ingram, they should be clearing space. This should be optimal for moving the chains, and they want to continue to progress Trevor Lawrence. I don't think they're going to build a playbook or a game script that's going to constantly be putting him at risk by overly putting the ball down the field. I think you have the type of possession receivers and, let's face it, a running back that needs more receptions in the game plan where you can safely, get this ball down the field, again, without exposing yourself to a ton of risk.
Like I said, I just drafted another guy I loved coming out of the NFL draft. So I draft a lot of Travis Etienne. So I'm hoping that we get to see a little bit more receiving work, like you said, this year. We're in pretty good lockstep these next couple here, actually. The consensus RB9, my RB9 is Josh Jacobs. Consistently undervalued, although seems to be fairly properly valued now coming in. Going into his 5th season, probably entering, just how running backs go. probably entering the twilight years of Josh Jacobs. It's crazy to say that for a 25-year-old, but you know what I mean? 4 years in, been very, very productive. And, it's almost like you maybe have missed it. You know what I mean? If you didn't take advantage of the value that Josh Jacobs was presenting the last few years, maybe you missed it. He is coming off a 2,000-yard all-purpose season. It's kind of crazy to think that for Josh Jacobs, but he was amazing last year, great fantasy player. So, what are we going to get going forward? He's never been overly efficient, got more receiving work last year, which was good to see, but that hasn't always been the case. So how long is he going to be for the Raiders? So there's a lot of question marks for Josh Jacobs, but I mean, there's just nobody I'm more comfortable ranking him at. He's obviously still clearly a top 10 guy for me too. What do you think?
Just a safe floor. The last 3 seasons, he's finished as running back 3, 11, and 8. You like that consistency. It's kind of funny. Jonathan Taylor made such a negative regression last year, right? Just like a huge fall off in production. Josh Jacobs did not really take that much of a step forward, even with a 2,000-yard all-purpose season. He went from 12.42 fantasy points a game up to 15.5. It would have felt like 6 or 7 points more per game the way that you saw him play this year. With the point I'm trying to make here is that Josh Jacobs has actually been quietly, underrated and reliable these past few seasons. I do, however, expect regression. So he finishes RB3. I could see him finishing, somewhere in this range, like RB6 to maybe RB12, based off of what we've seen and then his expected value for this upcoming season. But he had 340 attempts last season, carries. He only averaged 4.86 yards per carry. For a guy that rushed for 1,653 yards, you would have thought he probably averaged over 5 or 6 yards a carry. That's a lot of yards. No, he just ran the ball a lot. I expect the Raiders, to run the ball a lot this year. It's not like they have invested heavily at quarterback with only Jimmy Garoppolo on the books. So it feels like he's going to run a lot this year, but expecting him to hit that same, outcome, I think is a bit rich. I would expect regression on rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, attempts, of course, but I still think he's probably in a very safe space to collect 50 to 70 passes this season with an underwhelming quarterback like Garoppolo and still be kind of middled into this, again, RB6 to RB12 for the next couple of seasons, because he's playing on the tag this year. He either, resigns and he continues to be the guy for the Raiders, or he goes somewhere where he's probably, again, looking, probably somewhere 215, 250 plus touches.
I like Josh Jacobs a lot. Here's another one of my favorite underdog draft players last year. I was like, RB30. Are we serious?
Yeah,
Are we serious?
Yeah, him and Ekeler were the guys last year.
I couldn't grab him up enough, so I was super excited about that. Next up, I was excited to see that you don't hate Najee Harris either. This is another guy that hates gone too far. My God. Geez. I mean, this guy was fantastic as a rookie. He's young. I mean, he's kind of an older for being in his third year, but still, I mean, my God, the guy had a Liz Frank injury last year, hampered him for a few seasons. Then when you expected him to start turning it on those last 5 games, top 15 running back 4 out of those last 5 weeks, 4 out of the last 5 or 4 out of the last 6 weeks. But
it was mostly after the bye for him. Like after the bye, after that Jalen Warren talk was like really sitting in heavy, he said no. I did see
that was another thing. I just didn't get. Like, are you serious, Jalen Warren? You think Warren?
They were giving him some touches, but there was like a tweet that came out that said like, "Oh, the Steelers are going to lean into Jalen Warren now." And Najee heard that, and he turned his baseball cap around, turned on serious mode, and said, "Nah, this my backfield. Get out of here, bro." And after the bye, he was absolutely fantastic, and he was taking a ton of work after the bye, just like a ton of carries. Always a great target in the offense. We saw that win up against, I think it was Baltimore towards the end of the season. He caught that touchdown in the end zone. I mean, the guy can really do it all. I don't know why people hate on him so much. I hated the regression, 14 points per game his rookie season to 10 last year, but we also saw a huge decline in the passing game because Ben Roethlisberger isn't there. Now we should be getting that progression with Kenny Pickett, hopefully making progression.
Yes, I think in the passing work, I think middles out. I think he's going to get maybe more than he did last season, not as much as he did as a rookie. I think we get some of those efficiency back. The offense should be better. Yes, I think all of those things are positive for Najee Harris. Longer drives, Kenny Pickett, hopefully, staying out there on the field a bit longer. Tony Pollard is our next player up, RB11. It's just,
I feel dirty about it.
I know. That's how I feel too.
I don't like it, but I think the situation is like, until they do something, like they need to make a commitment to either a free agent, or we need to see something from, I guess Malik Davis or Deuce Vaughn. Like there needs to be a pulse of other relative, running back production here. Like we have to have some other trust. Otherwise, it's the Tony Pollard show? ?
I mean, I like Tony Pollard. He's a talented player. It's just
I do too,
but volume, it's just like, man, this, it was a slow road coming for Tony Pollard. It was he was in his 4th year last year. He finally sees some of that work. And I mean, when you look at it, I was just looking at it the other day. I'm going to pull it up right now. His season actually, I mean, he had some really big weeks. That's what drove a lot of that production. But then when you look at, he only finished as a top 10 running back 6 times, only finished as a top 20 running back 8 times. So it was only half the season that he finished as a top 20 running back.
He was the RB8 and he had 12.74 fantasy points per game.
Yeah, and some big weeks, some down weeks, so I just don't know. You know what I mean? Like he's just not somebody. Could I see him having a strong 2 or 3 year stretch here? Yeah, absolutely. It's just not. I don't see it. But I think that's maybe it. Is he more of a 1 to 2 year asset as opposed to a long term dynasty asset, which is fine. That's what we're looking for in running backs anyway. But a little pricey when we're considering RB1 territory.
I really don't want to buy him at this ADP, to be honest with you. And again, this is, kind of going back to passing on top running backs and startups and, going with that 0 RB approach. This is definitely someone that does not fit the bill. Like the cost, in my opinion, does not equal the return. I'll take, honestly, Austin Ekeler, who's 2 years older.
I know you will, because we're about to introduce those two here. Yeah. Of course, this is just a synopsis of the two people that we have talking right now, because the RB12 is 2 different guys. I pulled in our final players. I think you had Austin Ekeler at RB11. I had Ramondre Stevenson at RB11. So they fall in at the RB12 spot here. So young and productive running back, not as safe a floor with Ramondre Stevenson for me. Austin Ekeler, long-time producer, but an older player for you. That sounds just like what we were talking about as well. So
it's Ekeler, hard to deny him, like I said, when he's finished the way he has the past 2 seasons.
I sign me up against, let me get hurt again, however the saying goes, because I bet against running backs with his profile, with his age, every year. And guess what? I've been hurt by Derrick Henry every single season. So, and I'm ready to get hurt by Austin Ekeler, but I bet against these guys. I just don't want to be, especially in dynasty leagues and redraft leagues. Absolutely. Give me Austin Ekeler. Give me Derrick Henry. It's 1 year league and I'm trying to win the league anyway. Like I'll risk it for the biscuit. In dynasty leagues, I do not like, investing a high draft pick or any kind of serious draft capital in these type of running backs, just because I like to build a solid base of production for years when my startup draft, because you can, that's how you're going to set yourself up for a long time to come. I like to build up value for a long time, guys who are going to increase in value by next season. That's what I'm targeting in my draft. So Austin Ekeler, not someone. Ramondre Stevenson, though, it took me a while to come around, but Patriots backfield, the way it is, I went back and looked at some tape. He kind of seems like he's a bruiser. That's how, you look at his size, you're just like, oh man, he just must be powering down people. Very elusive in open space. Quick, not fast, but quick, agile. Like I said, there's a lot to like about Ramondre Stevenson. I think he could be in for I'm not sure what his role will be, because the Patriots
that's a problem.
The Patriots like to put people in small holes at running back, just have them very niche running backs.
Right.
Ramondre Stevenson was kind of a pass catcher last year, but the Patriots have not really a bruiser, but pass catchers on the roster. So maybe we see more goal line work, but less receiving work. But still, I like the young, talented running back here. Sell me on Austin Ekeler and why he's going to be a dynasty asset for years to come.
Oh, I don't know. I never said he'd be an asset for years to come. I like
at least
him
a couple years, I imagine. If you,
I would say this year and next, he offers you one of the safer floors, and getting him at running back 11, running back 12 in dynasty. I don't feel like you're putting in a ton of cost there, because you can draft him and then you can sit on that position for a long time. You flexing for me there? You gave me a little big pop-up pump.
Did you even see that on there? I didn't think my muscles were that big. Oh, wow.
Big pop-up pump. I love it.
I don't know.
I was like, what the hell?
I'm tired. I didn't get any sleep last night. I'm just doing weird stuff, just trying to. That's how my brain's working right now.
No, he should have an incredibly safe floor for the next 2 seasons. I still feel like he's going to be valued as a high priority asset in that offense. He's probably going to have more of a shift to receiving touches than he will running back touches, but he still will have exposure to high value touches in the red zone. Like you may see him kind of adapt to more of like what you saw last season with the Detroit Lions. They would use Swift all the way up the field until he got to the red zone. You may see a little bit of a combination of that with Ekeler, where they're sprinkling him in with receiver work, but they let him finish inside because he's very physical and he's still very, very athletic. Yeah, he may be 28, but he doesn't look it. I mean, the guy is absolutely stacked. He's got incredibly strong legs, a very strong upper body. It's just hard for me to discount him even at 28 with the work that he's put in the last 2 seasons. And he's coming off a season where he had 18.9 fantasy points per game in PPR formats. Obviously, he'll be valued less in standard formats, but again, he's going to be used as a receiver. That's his MO, and they haven't really committed to anyone else around him, at least for this upcoming season. So even if he were to regress from this and he's down to 14 or 15 fantasy points per game, the guys that we're evaluating at this type of ADP, Stevenson, 11.96 last season, Pollard, 12.74, Harris, Najee, 14.5 when his best season when he's a rookie, right? Like none of these guys are even coming close to that, even if he's regressing 4 to 6 points for the next 2 seasons at this ADP.
Win now asset. I do like Austin Ekeler, and so if he falls in dynasty drafts and a super flex, let's say into that 6th round range, 7th round, people are heavily drafting quarterbacks and wide receivers. I could see it. With that, we will wrap it up today. I got to go sling some cocktails on the unusual Sunday. I have to work.
What's tonight's special?
Special, I've been having fun with chartreuse lately. We've had a case of it and it's going out of stock. The monks. I don't know if you know a lot about green chartreuse. It's made by French monks. It's extremely popular, and they want to devote more time to their religion, so they're not making as much. It's extremely popular. It's caused bartenders and liquor lovers like myself to freak out. It's an amazing liqueur. Check it out if you can. Buy it online. Green chartreuse. It's fabulous. It's a secret recipe. Very, it's a very fun liqueur, and I always have fun with those. So a lemony. The green chartreuse is very herbal, and there's flower and chamomile in there. Like I said, go check it out if you haven't tried it. It's hard to explain if you don't know about it, but I appreciate the interest, and I'm going to get to it. But you can check out me at SGPN TWSN Player Profiler Fantasy Face-Off Network. How about Justin? Anything going on at SGPN this week?
No, not a whole lot. Come ride with us. We've always got the good stuff for you. Dynasty, IDP. We got auction content, best ball. Me and Andrew getting in the streets on our exercise bikes. Taking a little bit of a breather here, just sitting on my stool, talking some fantasy. Next week I'll be back on the exercise bike. Smashing beers, biking, drafting. That's how we do.
Just to remind you, Edge Boost Double Down Play of the Day is everything Chiefs on those Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs season-long bets, or future bets, I should say. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/edge to sign up today. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/edge. And thank you for watching the live YouTube. If you have, and be sure to smash that subscribe button and like this video. Thank you so much, everybody. You all take it easy, okay?